My older brother Jim died in a car crash when he was 18 years old. It's funny, because I just don't care. My family got their start when my grandfather, a young soldier returning from overseas, bought stock in the booming cheese industry. That's how he footed the transplant to the Arizona suburbs with his wife and son, my father, a block away from my mom's family. My father and mother would eventually become high school sweethearts, marry, and remain in the burbs. This is where I come in. I was forced, like many children, to have pride in America without really knowing what it was. All I knew was what I was told. War was important, it was right, and it was justifiable. We must stand behind our boys who are sheltering this great nation from the filth and corruption that is the outside world. So be it. We were the average American family. I remember that Christmas when I had gotten the train set I had begged Santa for the entire year. The 4th of July barbecue, I had won $3 from the neighborhood kids for eating a live cicada, falling off my skateboard and skinning both my knees and elbows, swimming in the neighbor's pool, as well as Little League, where my father would film what I thought were my games. Jim, my older brother, was firstborn and growing up my idol. He looked out for me, taught me about life, and I loved him for it. I would seek my father's attention, yet my brother would get it without trying. This was personified by his musical prowess, mimicking any song on the radio with just one listen. It was his passion, and my father couldn't understand it. Jim, on the other hand, understood my father's obsession with cars, something I never could do. Jim was the one person who made my young life bearable. At the age of 18, he was stolen from me when he was killed in a car accident while driving my father's brand new Oldsmobile Cutlass. My father's all-American boy was gone, and he was left with me. The only thing I remember about that night is the police officer that came to our door to tell us of our loss. My bastard father's first words were, "How's the car?" Typical. A very rich man with a very young woman sitting next to him in the passenger seat heads north going 60 miles per hour while the young woman gives him head. An 18-year-old boy heads south at 30 miles per hour. How much money will the rich man settle for out of court? The answer? Enough for the grieving family of the 18-year-old to go on a road trip across America. It actually served as a retreat to get our minds off of Jim. Our drive spanned from the US to Canada, never stopping for more than 5 minutes except to eat and sleep. East Coast beaches, take a picture, drive on. Bright lights of Vegas, drive on. Deserts of the Southwest, drive on. The only time we stopped were in these podunk towns to sleep and look at trains and boats. Sleep, big boat, little train. Sleep, red train, gray boat. My father stared at them for hours, and we had to watch him stare at them. I think it was his mechanical supplement. To us, she had been the fix-it lady because of her knack for fixing anything we broke, got into, or had done wrong. There was the time when my sister Elise and I had been snooping and came across movie reels. It turned out that my father had taken up the hobby of filming porn, and we found the secret stash. Luckily, Mom caught us watching them before my father did. Then Jim died, and all I remember seeing was her mop, scrub, polish, dust, and so on. She couldn't not do anything. I can't blame her. I mean, how else was she going to take her mind off the death of her child and being eternally neglected by her husband? So by all practical means, my father was serving his country, just not in any uniform, I think. He was a porn dealer for the U.S. Armed Forces. He produced and sold them to the government in order to cessate our lonely boys overseas. Since I was a kid, and to this day, I have a reoccurring nightmare of my father and I drifting off on our respective sofas, and me being able to see his dreams next to mine. Before I could decipher what was underneath the tarp, Sister Bertha rescues me from the infamous Cutlass. This was the first car I remember my father having. The Jagoff would wash it every Saturday and then film it. Familiar with this practice, I hopped up on the trunk of the Cutlass to get his attention while eating an ice cream cone. "Andy, I just washed that car, damn it. Don't get it dirty," he said. Of course, the ice cream fell right on the car as soon as the words left his mouth. He was a quick man. I got 5 across the eyes and tossed from the car before I could spout the words, "Oops." My therapist was the main influence for me making this documentary. She thinks my problems are rooted in my family and that doing this film will help me work through it. She also thinks it will curb this fetish I have. Well, she calls it an abnormality, I call it a fetish. Tomato, tomato. I go down to the highway and wait for animals to get crushed by passing cars and trucks, then I masturbate furiously. Hey, I say if I'm not hurting anyone, what's the harm in it? My shrink sees it differently. So this film about my life is what my shrink calls therapeutic art. And it is supposed to help me with my so-called problems, abnormalities, fetishes. We'll see. I have to give honorable mention to my father. This film would not have been possible if it had not been for his financial support. Unbeknownst to me, he sent this clip of us in a bonding father and son basketball game to America's Funniest Home Videos. God, that fucking hurt. He happened to beat out 2 of the ever-popular men folding from genital shot and won the annual grand prize of $100,000. I had not talked to him in 10 years, and I had the privilege of watching it on TV from a halfway house. He sat laughing with the rest of the easily amused morons in the audience. I wonder if they would have been laughing if they knew that I had blurred vision and a migraine for 2 days afterwards. Lucky for me, he died a month after the airing of the show. He left the money to my mother, who in turn handed it to me. Thanks, Dad, for making all this possible.